Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us. Today, we are talking about something really important for anybody who's interested in international relations,
Absolutely.
especially if you're getting ready for the UPSC exam.
Yes.
We're going to be exploring how these gender dynamics
Yeah.
that are often hidden in plain sight
Yeah.
actually shape the world stage.
It's fascinating how we often view international relations as this grand chessboard
Right.
of states vying for power.
Yeah.
But we so rarely examine how states themselves
Oh, this is good.
are actually products of these deeply ingrained gender roles and power imbalances.
It's like we're so focused on the moves on the board
Right.
that we forget to analyze the players
Exactly.
themselves.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing that's where feminist scholars come in.
Precisely. Feminism in international relations really challenges this state-centric view
Okay.
by shining a light on this concept of the patriarchal state.
Okay, so what exactly does patriarchal state mean?
Right.
Does it just mean that men hold most of the power? Because historically, that's been true in a lot of countries.
Right. It's more nuanced than just who's in charge.
Okay?
The patriarchal state really refers to how these traditional ideas about masculinity
Okay.
and femininity,
yeah.
about who leads and who follows, are embedded in the very structures and functions of the state itself. It's like this blueprint that influences everything from laws and policies to social norms and expectations.
So it's not just about the individual leaders, it's about the system itself being
Exactly.
skewed.
You got it.
That's a kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Does that mean that even policies that seem positive,
Yeah.
like welfare programs,
Mm-hmm.
could actually be problematic from a gender perspective?
That's a great question.
Okay.
And you've hit on a key insight.
Okay.
So take the welfare state, for instance.
Okay.
While it aims to provide a social safety net,
Uh-huh.
some feminist scholars argue that certain aspects can actually reinforce traditional gender roles and dependencies.
Can you give us a concrete example?
Sure.
Something that our UPSC folks could really use in an essay.
Certainly think about policies that emphasize women's role as caregivers.
Okay.
These can unintentionally make it harder for women to participate fully in the workforce,
Right.
reinforcing the idea that their primary domain is the home.
Yeah.
And this impacts economic independence.
Yeah.
And it limits opportunities for advancement,
Right.
perpetuating existing inequalities.
That's such an important point.
It is.
It's like these policies are designed with a very specific and often outdated vision of what a family looks like.
Exactly.
And if that's happening within states, I can only imagine how this translates to the global level.
You're absolutely on the right track.
Okay.
If states themselves are shaped by these patriarchal structures, it inevitably influences how they act on the world stage.
Okay.
Think about the pursuit of national interest,
Yeah.
often framed in terms of competition,
Right.
aggression, and this accumulation of power.
So the way countries interact with each other
Yes.
might be influenced by these underlying gender dynamics.
Exactly.
That's a pretty radical idea.
It is. It challenges us to re-examine our assumptions about why states behave the way they do.
Wow.
Are there deeper gendered motivations
Right.
that traditional international relations theories have overlooked?
Hold on, I need a moment to process this.
Yeah.
It's like someone just flipped the chessboard over and said, hey, the game was rigged from the start.
That's a great way to put it.
This is definitely going to make me look at global politics in a whole new light.
And that's just the beginning.
Oh, boy.
We haven't even touched on how nations themselves are often imagined in gendered terms.
Oh, interested.
Think about the language we use.
Okay.
Motherland.
Yeah.
Fatherland.
Right.
It's not just poetic.
Right.
It reveals a deeper connection between ideas about family, gender roles,
Right.
and national identity.
I never thought about it that way, but you're right. We often talk about nations as if they were these parental figures.
Yeah.
Which raises an interesting question.
Okay.
What happens when women are seen as symbols of a nation's heritage or purity, especially in times of heightened nationalism?
Yeah.
Could that actually put them in danger?
That's a crucial question.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, history provides some chilling answers.
Oh, no.
This symbolic association of women with the nation
Right.
can have very real and dangerous consequences,
Okay.
particularly during conflicts.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure.
I'm sure our UPSC listeners would want to understand the real-world implications of this.
Certainly when national identity is perceived as under threat,
Okay.
women can become targets of violence,
Right.
often in the form of sexual assault.
Wow.
It's a way for aggressors to assert dominance,
Uh-huh.
humiliate the enemy,
Yeah.
and symbolically defile the nation itself.
That's a terrifying thought.
It is.
And it's not just hypothetical. I remember our source material mentions specific examples.
Yeah.
The conflicts in Croatia, in Bosnia, the Gujarat riots.
Yes.
These are all tragic reminders that these theoretical discussions have very real human costs.
Precisely. And this is why understanding gender in international relations isn't just an academic exercise.
Right.
It's about understanding the forces that shape conflict, violence, and injustice on a global scale.
Right.
It's about recognizing the patterns and working towards more equitable and peaceful solutions.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So much to think about already.
I know, right?
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
What we've been discussing really highlights how this traditional framework of international relations often operates from a predominantly masculine perspective.
Okay, I'm curious to unpack this further.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that even the core concepts we use to understand global politics
Yes.
might have like a built-in bias?
Precisely.
Okay.
Let's take the concept of state sovereignty, for example.
Okay.
The idea that states are these independent entities operating in this self-help system,
Right.
it reflects a very individualistic worldview.
Okay.
Some scholars argue that this really resonates with these traditional masculine values of autonomy and competition.
So it's like we're projecting these masculine ideals onto how we understand the world stage.
Exactly.
It's almost as if the concept of national interest itself is being viewed through a very specific lens.
That's a sharp observation. The emphasis on national interest as this drive for power and security.
Yeah.
It aligns with the way that boys are often socialized to compete and assert dominance.
Yeah.
But is that the only way to view a nation's interests?
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if we're missing out on other aspects of a nation's well-being.
Yeah.
Things that might not fit into this traditional power-focused narrative.
Absolutely. Feminist scholars argue that this very narrow definition of national interest ignores these crucial aspects of human security. Things like social justice, economic equality, and environmental sustainability.
Right.
These are all interconnected and essential for a nation to really, truly thrive.
This makes me think about the whole concept of feminist foreign policy.
Yeah.
Which I know has been gaining traction in recent years. Is this essentially what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Bringing a gender-aware perspective to how countries interact with each other?
That's a great connection. Feminist foreign policy challenges this traditional, often militaristic view of national interest.
Right.
It prioritizes diplomacy, cooperation, and this focus on human security.
Right.
All elements that might have been dismissed as soft or secondary in the past.
So instead of just focusing on military strength and territorial integrity, a feminist foreign policy would consider things like economic empowerment, access to health care, and protection from violence, especially for women and girls.
Exactly. It recognizes that true security cannot be achieved through military might alone. It requires addressing these root causes of conflict and instability, which often include gender inequality and discrimination.
And this brings us back to something we touched on earlier. This disturbing link between national identity and violence against women.
Yes.
How does this fit into this broader framework of feminist international relations?
It's a tragic illustration of how patriarchal structures can manifest in these horrific ways.
Right.
When societies feel threatened, when national identity is perceived to be under attack, women's bodies often become battlegrounds.
It's like they become symbols of the nation itself.
Right.
And therefore targets for those seeking to humiliate or dominate.
Precisely. And this is not just an abstract concept. The UN Security Council has recognized the need to address this issue through resolutions on women, peace, and security.
For our UPSC aspirants,
Yes.
this is crucial information.
Absolutely.
You might very well encounter essay questions about the role of women in conflict situations. And understanding this framework is essential for crafting a nuanced response.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just acknowledge that women are often victims of violence. We need to understand the underlying power dynamics and advocate for their meaningful participation in peace building and conflict resolution.
This has been incredibly insightful. We've gone from unpacking the patriarchal state to rethinking our very understanding of national interest.
Right.
It's clear that gender is not just an add-on to international relations. It's a fundamental lens through which we need to view the entire system.
It is.
But I'm wondering, are there any alternative frameworks that specifically address these gender dynamics in a more comprehensive way? So we've established that these traditional international relations theories often fall short when it comes to understanding the role of gender.
Right.
But are there any alternative approaches that take these complexities into account?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Feminist international relations theory, often referred to as feminist IR, has emerged as this powerful critique of the mainstream, offering a whole new set of lenses through which to view these global power dynamics.
Okay, color me intrigued. What makes feminist IR so different?
Right.
Is it just about adding women to the equation, or is there something more fundamental going on?
It's about questioning the equation itself.
Whoa. Yeah.
Feminist IR challenges the very foundations of how we understand international relations.
Okay.
It argues that knowledge is never neutral. It's always shaped by our social positions, our identities, our experiences.
So it's acknowledging that for a long time, the field of international relations has been dominated by a very specific and limited perspective.
Exactly.
Mostly that of powerful men.
Exactly. And feminist IR seeks to deconstruct this dominant narrative by centering the voices and experiences of those who have been traditionally marginalized, women, people of color, LGBTQ plus individuals, and others whose perspectives have been systematically excluded.
That makes a lot of sense. But how does this translate into actual analysis and policy recommendations?
Right.
What kind of questions does feminist IR ask that traditional theories might miss?
For starters, it challenges this narrow definition of security that often focuses solely on military strength and territorial integrity. Feminist IR asks, what about the security of individuals, particularly women and girls, who are often disproportionately affected by conflict, poverty, and violence?
So it's about recognizing that security isn't just about protecting borders.
Exactly.
It's about protecting people and ensuring their well-being in a much broader sense.
Precisely. It also scrutinizes the impact of global economic policies on different genders. For example, how do trade agreements and structural adjustment programs affect women's employment opportunities, access to education, and overall economic empowerment?
It's about connecting the dots between these seemingly separate spheres of politics and economics. And understanding how they intersect with gender dynamics.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond simply identifying problems. It offers alternative solutions. For instance, instead of relying solely on military intervention, feminist IR might advocate for conflict resolution strategies that address the root causes of violence, including gender inequality and discrimination.
So it's about shifting our focus from reactive measures to preventative measures that address the underlying structural issues.
Exactly. It's about understanding that achieving lasting peace and security requires a more holistic and inclusive approach that takes into account the diverse needs and experiences of all individuals, regardless of gender.
For our UPSC listeners, this is gold. Imagine getting an essay question on conflict resolution or human security. By incorporating a feminist IR perspective, you can demonstrate a nuanced understanding that goes beyond the traditional narratives.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, understanding feminist IR can empower you to engage with global issues in a more informed and critical way. It allows you to challenge assumptions, question power structures, and advocate for a more just and equitable world.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from unpacking the patriarchal state to exploring the complexities of feminist IR theory. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for understanding how gender shapes the global landscape.
And the key takeaway is this. Gender matters. It matters in how we analyze global politics, in how we formulate policies, and ultimately in how we build a more peaceful and sustainable future for all.
Well said. If you're not considering gender in your analysis of international relations, you're missing a crucial piece of the puzzle.
You are.
So keep learning, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep advocating for a world where gender is no longer a barrier to opportunity or equality. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this deep dive with anyone who needs to hear this message. Until next time, keep those critical thinking caps on.